Thank you very much indeed for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. This is a new domain for me to talk to a retail audience, so I'll be bringing a perspective from Atkins. We're a design, engineering, construction and project management firm. We focus on the business that I lead, Intelligent Mobility in Europe, focuses on running the government's trials for autonomous vehicles, and that will include drones, so networks of drones, fleets of personal and passenger transit vehicles, including logistics, freight, delivery, and sea and subsea vehicles. For today's purposes, we're going to focus mostly on drones and the land-based autonomous vehicle trials that we're running for the government. I sit on the board of Ventura, which is the UK's first autonomous vehicle project, and I'm also a member of Meridian. Meridian is the top 20 organisations in the UK that are steering the development and adoption of autonomous vehicle technology throughout the UK. Today we're going to cover three things: the changing landscape, because there's a lot going on out there. We're going to look at the five main drivers that are all converging around vehicle autonomy, and then we're going to conclude. But I'm just going to start with a quick statement from Jim Hackett, the chief exec of Ford. And he recently went on the record to say that in his opinion, and I guess he should know, the step change we're seeing from human-controlled vehicles to autonomous controlled vehicles, or autonomous vehicles, is as similar as going from horse to car. And that referred to the world in which we live, the way in which we conduct our lives, and the way that we build and design and live in the world. So he and I, frankly, are expecting great change. He and I also share a view that I'm uncertain, or we're uncertain, quite how ready we are for it. And we'll talk about ethics and artificial intelligence relating to the capabilities of these vehicles as we go. So, what can we see going on? There's a changing landscape out there. We are seeing that roads and highways are becoming digitally enabled, far more alive and far more sentient. Rail is getting a lot smarter, and rail is being positioned at the heart of the UK's future mobility network. Electric vehicles and low-carbon vehicles are moving from vehicle manufacturer projects to schemes and networks of vehicles that will run across cities. UAS, unmanned aerial systems, so drones. The government, with a program called Nesta and Flying High, something else we're working on, is now looking at individual drones, and will soon look at swarms of drones, commercially backed and government approved, operating across our cities and through our highways. The world is changing. A lot of the world in which Atkins and others designs, plans and inhabits is changing, so this infrastructure that we see around us is going to be fundamentally reimagined, and there'll be a lot less of it as we move to more sensor-enabled infrastructure. New business models are appearing. We get inundated with requests from institutional investors about where to place big bets. Is it in the vehicle? Is it in the back office? Is it in the artificial intelligence? I suspect the vehicle will become a commodity, and the wise bets and the big bets will focus on the back office or the infrastructure. Connected autonomous vehicles, an area very close to my heart. They're coming. They're astonishingly capable vehicles, and what we're seeing at the moment with the three trials is that we're moving from just trialling individual vehicles to trialling networks and fleets of vehicles that have a shared consciousness, and they'll be operating on a fully autonomous basis. And how we access mobility is changing as well, so far more personalised, app-based and account-led access to mobility. So with that kind of complex landscape, there's sort of five areas that really drive change that we've identified. Autonomous vehicles, human acceptance, coverage, and coverage is really important because that element of coverage and connectivity is effectively a seatbelt element. Without that, these vehicles won't make the safety grade and safety case, and indeed get their own driving license. So coverage is crucial, and I would say that the digital highway is almost as essential as the physical highway. Business models are really important here because whilst projects are interesting to learn about what the vehicles can do and can't do, it's spinning them out into sustainable commercial platforms that's really where the big bets are going to be placed. And then ethics. So every autonomous vehicle that we're trialling has a large AI component in. Some even have their own driving moods as well. So we have a real social and ethical duty in our work, and I believe we do as a society, that as we push for greater autonomy, we also bring with us greater humanity. So let's take a look at connected autonomous vehicles. Well, as I said, we're seeing a welcome shift from individual vehicle trials to trialling far more complex networks and schemes of vehicles. We do a lot in America and a lot in the UK. The Americans and the trials in America suffer slightly from the freak-out factor because the regulations there are different, and therefore we're pushing the boundaries of AV testing and trialling. So platoons of vehicles, working with the Department of Transport and Department of Defence. The technology, as I said, is there, but over in the UK, it's really trialled on the individual vehicle basis at the moment, and then early next year, we're going to see fleets of vehicles being trialled. On that, let's take a quick moment to look at 3 trials that we're working on. Human Drive, Flourish, and Ventura. They're all publicly available, they all have their own website. So in a nutshell, Human Drive is designed to create the most human-like experience in an autonomous vehicle, from booking right through to use and then post-use interaction. It's going on a 200-mile level 5 autonomous journey, which is the highest level of autonomy. So the vehicles in Human Drive will be undertaking a level 5 200-mile journey. We're doing the cyber protection for that, as well as leading the project. And the cyber protection is a colossal undertaking, and in a way almost as that digital safety case is as important as the physical safety case. For Flourish, the middle project, we're designing the human-machine interface and the vehicle rules engine. The vehicle rules engine is basically the brain that sets the mood of the vehicle, whereas the vehicle control system is dictating how the vehicle drives. So I'm not an expert in retail, but I think we need to understand, and you might want to consider understanding a little more about how humans interact with the vehicle, and then how that changes the mood of the vehicle. And that's on a personal and a mass transit level. So a bus with 30 people on will behave and drive differently to a bus with 1 person on. The main learning from Flourish is that the biggest adopters are the elderly population. So those that are struggling to drive or have lost their driving licenses through age are the ones that, and we're working with Age UK on this project, are the ones that are pulling the request for the technology far quicker than we thought. And then Ventura, the one on the right, the government's first project, the Wildcat vehicle and a Twizy and a bus are all interacting together. That's been a 3-year project, and really the findings in that have been quite astonishing. The vehicle takes and generates 14 terabytes of data every 15 minutes, which is the same as the Large Hadron Collider in CERN. There's only one of those, and obviously we want 200,000 or 300,000 of these on the road. So already the UK and the government is now wondering about where do we store the data, how do we secure it, how do we triage it, and artificial intelligence won't just control the vehicle, but will also help us control the back office. So safety critical data, for example, gets pulled forward above navigational data. That project's also generated the shape and structure of the Automated and Electric Vehicles Act, which was passed last month. So there's a lot of CAV licensing and CAV insurance, which is also coming our way that we need to understand. The second element is human acceptance and really trust, normalization in user experience. So to avoid the freak out factor across the 3 projects and indeed our other work, we've got 3 major learnings. We all know that trust takes a long time to build up and a quick time to lose. But for CAV adoption, it's not just the vehicle that people have got to trust. For autonomous vehicles, whether they be personal transit or whether you're getting goods delivered by them, you need to trust the booking system, the network on which you've booked the vehicle, the route the vehicle is going to take, other vehicles it's going to interact with. The residual value of the vehicles is going to change as well. This is a whole new terrain of trust that we're having to navigate, and all those influencing factors are really impacting the next topic, which is normalization. We think it will be 20 or 30 years before we consider as a society autonomous vehicles to be completely normal. So we won't turn our head when an Uber picks us up without a driver in, not without a driver driving, but without a driver in. So 20 to 30 years. And government, DFT and CCAV are really focusing on normalization as a key aspect to get greater adoption. And then user experience. We all know a lot about user experience, particularly at this event. But the user experience in a CAV has to start from the concept of wanting to be driven in a fully autonomous vehicle, or indeed getting your goods delivered by it, right through to the post-vehicle experience around payment reconciliation, whether you're going to make a profit on a journey that you've sold on, etc. And then coverage. As we've said, coverage, a bit of a seatbelt moment really. It's the digital version of the road. We're not going to have any progress without it. Vehicles will be connected to each other. They'll be connected to users, roadside infrastructure, beacons, and I'm afraid police and insurers. We need to think about how comfortable we are with that. I don't think we can draw a red line around connectivity in a fully autonomous network. Mobile is a popular booking system, but it can't be the only system. The risk is, of course, that we generate an autonomous vehicle network that's just used and accessed for the young, city-dwelling, digitally savvy. That's probably not a bad place to start, but we need to make sure that it's an egalitarian and inclusive network. CAVs connected autonomous vehicles don't need 5G, they just need a secure and stable network. Some of our vehicles run off a 3G network, but it's got to be absolutely robust. You don't want the network dropping and then an incident to occur. And that leads us nicely onto cyber. The cyber work we do, both of the National Cyber Security Centre and DFT on these vehicles, is of unprecedented complexity. And the risks of a single vehicle being hacked and breached, or a network of vehicles being hacked and breached, is one of the big factors for public adoption and trust, and also major institutional investment. And ownership is an issue as well. So in the future, if you don't own the vehicle but you have a mobility account, and the vehicle as it enters a particular highway gets charged or debited for use of that highway, it brings really interesting ownership considerations around roads. And Highways England, amongst others, are working with us on what the new business models might be. And on that, the business models, I think, are one of the most exciting areas. So major institutional investors are looking at fleets of autonomous vehicles, retail, logistics, personal transit, mass transit. And they're wondering and asking, Nathan, where do we place our bets? Is it in the construct of the vehicle? Is it in the 3D printing? Is it the chassis, the design? I think at this stage, I'm taking the sort of the iPhone analogy really, which is the shell and the composite material is one asset. The real deal will be in the operating system and the data. So that's an area that we're really encouraging investors to focus on, that digital infrastructure. It's also worth considering mobility as a service, both for retail and mass transit and personal transit. We're running a trial in Manchester, mobility as a service trial, and one of the findings is that before the trial, 11% of the population of Manchester wanted to use the bus. After the trial, that went up to 71%. Now that's a big step. So what? That's about bus patronage. Nudging that amount of consumers making mobility choices has to leave a door open for retail as well. And the cause of that was the personal, bespoke and timely information that was given to each user on their journey rather than just having a paper ticket. And then ethics. Digital ethics. A lot of the vehicle trials and a lot of the surrounding modelling work that we do for government has this at its heart. Every vehicle and every network has got a substantial amount of AI loaded into it. And in some cases, the dampeners are taken off because we need to see how far that can go. The AI is also moving into the back office, so rather than controlling just a vehicle, it's controlling a network of vehicles, so they have a shared sentiment. And again, that's exciting technically, but that brings us on some fairly uncertain and unproven moral terrain. Inclusion is really important. So again, we need to think about all protected characteristics and all elements of society when we design an autonomous vehicle network. I spoke yesterday at Cenex in the Midlands, which is the UK's low carbon and autonomous vehicle conference, and I was joined by one of my project managers who's visually impaired, and he spoke very compellingly about the fact that when he was 10 years old he was told he would never ever drive, and he's a project manager on the UK's first autonomous vehicle project. So that was a really personal, great story for him to bring to life, and he presented really well about how the work that he was doing was going to change his life. And finally, we see a convergence of government and industry. Government absolutely should not and cannot do this on their own, and nor can industry. There needs to be a new era of collaboration and new business models where the appropriate amount of regulation, both in vehicle design, use of artificial intelligence, is matched by freedom and innovation in industry, and we certainly aren't there yet. So to conclude, autonomous vehicles of pretty much every size, shape, purpose, type and use case are coming. The genie is absolutely out of the bottle. We're moving to more complex trials, so expect to see networks of autonomous vehicles being trialled on roads next year, and not just late at night. We do see a user pull, but we aren't there yet. So we all need to do more around user adoption, whether that's commercial user and investors, retail users or personal users. Coverage and connectivity is going to unlock autonomous vehicle fleets across the UK. Otherwise, they'll be restricted to certain mobility corridors where you guarantee coverage. And that's really important in rural areas. And new business models and challenger models like fractional ownership that really push the boundaries on existing franchise models are going to start to appear as well. But we need to think about what the appropriate competition law exists for autonomous shared vehicle ownership. And I reckon ethics is a great one to end on, because really I think it's something we all have a duty to spend more time on. I welcome the government's recent Artificial Intelligence Committee and focus on digital ethics formulation. £200 million worth of funding is just a start, but this is an uncharted sea, and we need to make sure that we're all going into it, particularly with a focus on AI, not just in the vehicle but in the networks, open-minded and open to all the potential consequences, both intended and unintended. So look, it's not a retail presentation. It's focused very much around the government trials that we run on vehicles. I hope it's caused some debate. I hope you've learned something new and it's been a bit different. But I'll be delighted to take any questions or comments you may have. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nathan. We do have a couple of questions come through there. In practical terms, how are autonomous and human-controlled vehicles going to share the space, and can they?
So I don't think they can. I think we'll see lane and route segregation. That could be done by time, but more practically I suspect it'll be done by physical infrastructure. So think bus lane, and then you'll have an EV electric vehicle and AV autonomous vehicle lane. Okay. I suspect that's where policy will take us.
And the LiDAR used in some autonomous vehicles doesn't work in the rain. Would have been fine this summer. What sensing technology works well in the UK weather?
It doesn't work as well in the rain or cloud or snow. The vehicles have three mechanisms to navigate. There's LiDAR, camera, and quantum positioning. And GPS, frankly, I suppose. I was assuming GPS is built in. So there's 3.5 or 4 mechanisms there. What that does, it fine-tunes location and stopping distances, but it also supports the failure rate if one of those networks goes down. But it's not just LiDAR that steers the vehicle.
You talked about the conversion rate of people moving to be happy with the autonomous buses. What was it, 71%? Was that right? How much did that surprise you? And do you think that's replicable in other autonomous vehicles?
In time. I mean, a big factor of that was lane segregation, so bus lanes helps. Also the fact that it's you're on it with a number of different people. I mean, we were in a really interesting debate with some senior politicians and civil servants around what age should a child be able to book an autonomous vehicle and enter it on their own. So let's assume a child has a phone and an app. Is it 6? Is it 16? Is it 12? And of course the answer is it could be any one of the above. But how happy would you or they or us be if our children got into a vehicle that we saw the doors close and it took them to school and we aren't in it? And so some of those ethical questions are quite interesting to work through as well.
Definitely. Anybody got any questions for Nathan here? No, that was fascinating. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, there's one there. Sorry, sir. We just get a microphone to you. Just coming now. Sorry, you've gone the long way around. Yeah. Sorry, Hannah. It's this gentleman here with a tech T-shirt. Okay.
I think a couple more will come through.
No, it won't come through on there. He'll just ask. You'll just have to borrow my headphone. You'll hear what he's saying. All right. Thank you, sir.
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to know whether Nathan thinks that the adoption of these technologies is going to be driven mostly by B2C or whether it'll be B2B networks first.
I suspect it'll be B2B first. And I suspect we'll see blue light, military, and then the major logistics and hauliers will adopt it first. The safety case is clearer than individual users.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you. Question here. We'll just get the microphone to you, this gentleman here. I should pop these on so I can hear what it is.
As huge data sets are generated, what are the implications for personal data? Is there GDPR or anything similar?
As with any data collection platform, it'll be around the rules that we put in it. Also the rules that are put in it. The risks go a lot greater and a lot more widespread when you connect a vehicle to a device, to a user, to supporting infrastructure. So as your vehicle is taking you with all your personal information because you booked it because you want that bespoke journey, as it goes through a city or another piece of infrastructure, what assurance do you need that that data isn't being spun out and accessed and seen without your authority or permission or level of comfort? That's a whole uncharted area at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Any more questions? No? That was brilliant. Thank you very much. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan.